Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Andy and you're watching the Opinionated Reefer YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about protein skimmers and whether a high-end protein skimmer is really worth it or is it all just a con. In this video I just wanted to highlight that there's not really a great difference in terms of quality between a budget skimmer and a higher end skimmer. This is my old trusty Bubble Magus NAC 7 skimmer, which was the previous model to the current Curve 7, and it's been working well for the last 3 or 4 years. It's just a basic AC skimmer and the only control you have on it is to move the water level up and down. As you can see, it creates a fairly decent foam head if a little bit watery. Now this is a skimmer I replaced it with. It's a Deltek DC skimmer. I'm not exactly sure what model it is precisely. I think it might be one generation older than the current generation. But it's a far bigger and more powerful skimmer than the Bubble Magus. Basically I picked this up used, I swapped it for some other bit of equipment that I had lying around. So just to give you an idea of how much this skimmer costs, I think it is the equivalent of the 1000i DC, which is £479.99. Nearly £500, and here is the Bubble Magus Curve 7, which is equivalent of the NAC 7. It's only £188.98, which is less than half the price. So here we have a comparison of the two skimmers side by side. So if we take a look inside the Deltek, all you can see is a DC pump with a tube coming out the top of it, whereas in the Bubble Magus you have an older AC pump, but it has a what I believe is called a diffusion plate on top of the pump. You'll also notice that the Bubble Magus has a cone shape to the skimmer, whereas the DC Deltek is just a straight tube with a slight cone at the top. The cone or curved shaped body on some skimmers is supposed to help the bubbles travel up into the collection cup. So we can just take a closer look at the Bubble Magus skimmer. As you can see, this is an old, well used skimmer. It's basically just made out of clear acrylic. It has a diffusion plate with a sort of heavy duty AC pump that is pretty inefficient, with just a silicone tube and a venturi which is used to feed air into the pump. Inside the pump you have what's called a needle wheel impeller that's used to chop the air up into thousands of tiny little bits to help create the bubbles. So now we'll just take a closer look at the Deltek skimmer. So on first impression I wasn't very impressed at all. It's basically just a thin, cheap plastic, a cheap acrylic tube. Not what you'd expect for a £500 skimmer. It's got a fairly large collection cup on it, which comes with this handy skimmer neck cleaner, but believe it or not, that cleaner neck cleaning lid costs about £150 on its own. Now the pump is a DC pump, but it's actually just a cheap JBL pump that's been rebranded. It's not anything special. It just has a very cheap thin plastic venturi on it and a needle wheel impeller. As you can see, this is the standard JBL DC Pump controller with a Deltek label on it. Now if we look at both the collection cups, you'll see that the Deltek has a much bigger collection cup, indicating that it is a more powerful skimmer, but it's made of cheap, scratchy plastic. Now it has that handy neck cleaner on it that costs the earth. But if we look at the Bubble Magus lid, it's actually made it thicker, more premium quality acrylic. It's not as big a collection cup, but it's a good bit sturdier. Just look at the central tube, it is significantly thinner on the Deltek, which is not what you would expect for a skimmer costing twice as much. They both have like drainage tubes. After having said all that, this is the Deltek Skimmer after it's been running for a single week. Now look at that thick black skim mate. Now there is no doubt that this is a significantly better skimmer. So I'm fairly impressed, since I've only been running the skimmer at 50% power. But I'm still not sure where the value is. I mean, it's basically just a cheap acrylic tube with a JBL pump stuck on it. Now it's a 2000 litre per hour JBL pump. So I think what this proves is that diffusion plates and cone shaped bodies mean nothing. Basically it's all down to the power of the pump. So there you go guys, make of this what you will. Hope you found this informative, and I'll catch you on the next one.